All right, welcome to our third lecture. So this lecture we're going to have, I divided up into 4 parts, so make sure you watch them all. And we're going to go ahead and get right into it. So mostly we're going to be talking about units and converting. And then we're also going to talk about chemical and physical changes, what that is. Now, before we do any of that, I do have one last thing to tell you regarding sig fig. So we have covered almost all of it, but there's one more fact that's going to be important, especially when we get to converting problems in the second part of this lecture, part B. All right, now that fact is some numbers are called exact numbers. Exact numbers, what the heck is an exact number and why do we care? Well, an exact number is a number that has an unlimited amount of sig figs, and we care because we will ignore those numbers when we decide how to round an answer to a calculation. So there's several ways that a number fits in this category of being called an exact number. And one way is if we have a number that comes from counting, we won't worry about that number when deciding how to round. So let's say, for example, I told you, hey, go to the store, buy me 5 apples and tell me the total weight of all those apples. So you go to the store and you grab 5 apples, right? So you would, okay, there's 5 apples. And each apple, like you put 1 on the scale, and each apple weighs 0.75 pounds. And then I said, okay, well, you got 5 apples. Each one is 0.75 pounds. Tell me what's the total weight of all of them together. Well, the way you would do that is you would do a little math, right? You would have to multiply 5 times the weight of each apple, 0.75. And if you work it out, the combined weight of all those apples, your calculator would tell you, is 3.75. Now, 3.75 pounds, which is fantastic. But hey, you're talking to a chemist, so I want that answer rounded based on sig figs. So how would you round that? Would you round that to 1 sig fig because this only has 1 sig fig? Or would you round it to 2 because that number has 2 sig figs? Well, the rule says if you are a number that comes from counting, don't worry about it when you decide how many sig figs are in your answer. So I know this only has 1 sig fig, but don't even think about that. Just look at this number for deciding how many digits to put in your answer. And this number has 2 sig figs. So you would round your answer to 2. It would actually be 3.8 pounds is what you would tell me. All right, so yeah, we use the 5, but don't worry about how many sig figs are in the 5 when you think about rounding. All right, what are some other examples? Now, another example would be a number that's part of a formula. Like, for example, and this won't, and we really won't probably be doing this, but just an example would be like, let's say I wanted you to figure out the formula for the area of a triangle. The formula for area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. Now, if you had to do this, and I said do it and then round it, you would not worry about how many sig figs are in the half when you decided how to round your answer. You might have, I don't know, let's say you measured the base, that's like the width of the triangle, and let's say it's 8.8 centimeters. And then the height, let's say the height of the triangle is, I don't know, 4.5 centimeters. If you were to use that, the rounding part of your answer you would not worry about the half part. The half is part of the formula. You would worry about the fact that, oh, this number only has 2 sig figs, and this number only has 2 sig figs. So you would give me 2 in the answer. All right, I don't even know if I'll bother working it out. You would just give me 2 in the answer. So a number that's part of a formula, don't think about it when you decide how to round. Don't think about how many sig figs are in that part of the math. All right, I have to tell you these first 2 don't come up much. The last one is the important one really for us. And that is when we decide how to round and we're using a definition in our calculations. So a definition would be something like the fact that 1 yard is defined as 3 feet. If you were to use that fact, you were doing some math with that fact, you would not use the fact that those numbers have 1 sig fig when you decide how to round. Now, why do we care about this? Because it turns out in the next video, you're going to see a lot of ideas like this. These ideas, 1 yard is 3 feet, that's called a conversion factor. And conversion factors, we don't worry about how many digits are in those conversion factors when we decide how to round our answers. So when you get to the next video, this might make a little bit more sense. So keep that in mind. Conversion factors are like definitions. We don't think about how many sig figs are in them when we decide how to round an answer. All right, with that, that's all I'm going to say in this video. Go ahead and move on to the next one, and let's talk about converting.